here, and you can just like watch.
Okay.
And the whole library can watch me.
LOL. Okay, so first off, do you have anything that you're specifically wanting to get out of it, or you're like wanting certain feedback on something? Or what you feeling?
Out of the whole entire speech, or
out of this
okay.
session.
I want to know if my topic makes sense like all the way through, because like I tell two different stories within my talk, and one relates to something you can control and one relates to something you can't, and I just want to get the point across that like we should be figuring out better solutions to the things we can solve instead of thinking of solutions to the things we can't.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're wanting to make sure that it's clear that you're like,
yes,
that it's not just like you rambling on, that there's like a specific reason you're telling.
Yes, and I just don't want it to be like me telling my stories, no one getting anything out of it, or like you not understanding why I told this specific story.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll make sure to look for it, and then we'll figure it out.
Alright.
So I'm gonna.
I'm not sure of my time either.
Yeah, I just checked the time, so it's 2:05 right now. So I'll double check to make sure.
Okay.
To see where you're at.
Cool.
So whenever you're ready.
Okay. So something I struggle with and continue to struggle with is this little phrase I made up called definition processing. I haven't patented the term yet, but I probably will after this talk goes viral. But do you ever read a definition or paragraph multiple times and not really understand it? This happens to me all of the time. It's very annoying actually, because I find myself to be some sort of an intellectual. So in the end I just feel dumb. I feel like, why can't I figure this out? I would spend hours rewriting definitions exactly word for word until I thought I knew them. Test time rolls around, and guess who forgot the word she wrote 1,000 times? This girl. Why do I do this? Why do I waste all of that time, energy, and paper writing these definitions only to forget them? This is because I thought that this was just the way things had to be. The education system ingrained in my brain that in order to know or learn something, it has to be by the book. If I had learned what I know now about finding better or even worse solutions to problems, I would have been a better student, a better listener, a better friend, and a better person at the time. Let's take a journey back to my realization of this so-called theory of mine. It was sophomore year of college. My boyfriend and I were in the same class, and we were studying for our midterm together. This exam would be more definition-based, so I started to waste a lot of paper by writing definitions word for word, only to forget them because I was too focused on knowing them by the book instead of the content within the definition. My boyfriend started quizzing me, and he said, "What is the definition of wellness?" I said, "Wellness is an active process of becoming aware of and making choices towards a healthy and fulfilling life." His time came around to where I was quizzing him, and he got the same question. I said, "What is wellness?" He goes, "The state of being in good health." I was like, "No, the definition is an active process of being aware of and making choices towards a healthy and fulfilling life." He goes, "Yeah, that's what I just said." And I was like, "But the definition will probably be word for word on the exam." He goes, "Morgan, I know this. I have my own way of understanding the definition in my own words. For when the time comes, I will know how to answer the question." So basically, light bulb goes off, ding. And this began my theory of why the education system can build stress on people like myself who take things so literally. This also took a toll on how I handled life's realities. And I'm not saying that everyone has this issue. There are great brains in this room. I can feel the intelligent energy you're giving off just by speaking to you. Okay. Some of you can read a definition and just be set and just understand it like that. For others like me, it takes time, and that's okay, because life does not have to be by the book. Throughout our years in education, we've learned at a very young age that grades are important. I feel as though life revolves more around education than education revolves around our lives. Don't get me wrong, education is extremely important, but is it what makes us who we are? Absolutely not. It's when we take these ideas from the education system and use them in our personal lives that education starts to take control. Because I was so adamant about learning a definition word for word on an exam, I have a problem with planning my life by the book. I freak out at any small convenience that gets in the way of my future plans. That anxiety shouldn't exist. What is happening in your life right now is supposed to be happening because it's happening. It sounds like a simple concept, but we are so quick to argue with reality because we are perfectionists. Byron Katie, the author of Loving What Is, reminds us that if you want reality to be different than what it already is, you might as well teach a cat to bark. My dad gets a phone call one day. Ricky, I'm lost. My grandma had been on her way to our house for dinner one Saturday evening. She lives about 10 minutes away from our house, and she ended up being an hour away from us because she turned around in a train and kept driving. Ricky, I'm lost. My grandma has Alzheimer's disease. That incident was our first step in accepting that she cannot live on her own anymore because the disease is progressing. Did I expect this to be in my plans? Do any of us expect life's inevitable to be in our plans? When we put our energy and best efforts into the things we can't control, or the things that can possibly have better solutions, we tend to lose a part of ourselves. It's possible our anxieties arise because we were only taught to stick to the agenda. Instead, we should emphasize that there are better and worse solutions to solve problems. It's more effective to learn how to cope with life's twists and turns we can't control, and it also shows people that there is more than one solution. Life doesn't have to be by the book anymore, starting today. Thank you.
Good. It is
How long?
2:11, so that would make
6 minutes?
Yeah.
I need to beef it up.
Yeah.
I know I have to beef it up, but that's the gist of what I have so far. Does it make sense though?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go
Okay.
over the things I liked because it was good. So I really like how relatable it is. I feel like it's definitely something people can understand. Like, you get on Quizlet, you find the definition, and you get into that pattern.
Mm-hmm.
But really at the end, do you know what wellness is? Do you know all those things? And then it really doesn't help you for the test, and then it doesn't help you for life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think it's super relatable, and I really enjoyed the journey you took us on from something so simple, something so ironically by the book, and then you took us on this journey to your grandmother's dealing with Alzheimer's and
Mm-hmm.
really what
Something way bigger
than not being able to study for a test. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so you're, correct me if I'm wrong, but your big idea is that life cannot always be, the quote you said at the end, life isn't always by the book.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always plan for everything.
And any word in a book has a different meaning than
Mhm.
what you think it is, what the actual definition is. That's kind of my point. My point is basically you start with something you can control, your study habits and everything. But then you get into these habits and you think that you can take these habits and make them into something you can't control. My grandma's disease, I was so set on just planning my life, this is gonna be perfect, by the book,
Yeah.
to a T, and then life happens. Basically, it's just about life happening, what's supposed to be happening is happening because it is happening.
Yeah.
That's,
So I feel like you have a lot of, one thing I really liked is I feel like you have a lot of really good phrasing. So I really liked the last sentence you said.
mm-hmm.
I thought that was really good, and I also really liked, what was it? Oh, were you talking about we should be living life, education revolves around our lives, but instead of really being life revolves around our education, and I thought that was like a really good word choice. I thought that was really impactful, especially I feel like that really takes your audience into account, since we all are here students struggling, like trying to figure things out. So that was really impactful
Right.
to me.
Right. And like, I think of like when you say that, I think of like something my roommate has said. Like, she goes, if you think about it, we're just here for an education, and then life happens. But then like, it should really be like life is happening, and you're just getting an education
Yeah.
outside. You know, like that's
Yeah.
what I want to be like doing. You know.
I think, yeah, for sure. And I got that from you, I feel like. So that was really good. And I thought like the passion behind what you're saying, I can like genuinely hear in your voice that you care. And I think it's really nice as an audience member to know that like you've got something to say, and here's you up here saying it. And I thought that was really good. And then I think a lot of the things that like I noticed were like little things that we can like, once we do the line by line, I think we can work on a lot. I know your big thing was like making sure things are clear, and I think you have a lot of ideas, which are great. So I think it's just like giving yourself the time and the space to elaborate on each one, because I mean you're only at 6 minutes.
Right.
So you have 4 minutes if you wanted to really like
Bring it together.
make it clear if you wanted to. And then one thing that I like, well, we're working through, I think one thing that would be fun to work on is your beginning. I think if we jump into it maybe differently, then it could like really spark my interest. Because I think you spend a good portion of time like explaining to me what you're about to talk about. And I kind of think it would be cool if you jump me into your story,
Right.
and then afterwards you explain to me what you just told me, instead of telling me what you're gonna say.
Like instead of like explaining like one night my boyfriend and I were studying, we could just jump into like the dialogue, being like, what is.
Yeah. Like, or even if you started like that, like, cause you, can I see your script?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, yeah, like, is this the beginning? That's what I thought. Yeah, so like, I thought that was really funny, like the whole definition processing. I wonder if I would enjoy it more if it was after your story. So if you started it with like, your story about your boyfriend, like, one night, my boyfriend and I, we were studying for an exam we had together. I was killing it. I got it word for word. I was really working hard. You know, you really get me. And then my boyfriend gave me the gist. And I like, one thing I thought was really funny was your wordplay during your story. Is it was like, he said this, but then I said this, and then it was like, but the definition is this, and he's like, no, but the definition.
Yeah,
like
I like
really
talk in my like guy voice, like no Morgan, like I understand.
Yeah, and like you go back and forth between an active process of becoming aware, like, and then he's like, yeah, it's just like making healthy choices.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that part, and I wonder if it would even like, if I don't know what you're doing for your slides, but I pictured in my head when you were doing that, like you like feverishly like clicking back and forth between like one definition and the other.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, but it's this, and then he was like, no, it's this, and then I was like, yeah, and then
That'd
it's
be
like,
fun, yeah.
this was my definition processing, and then you said that. I really felt like a very comedic, like the like cartoon back and forth.
Just kind of like tell the story and be like, this is an example of a term I like to call definition processing.
Yes, exactly. And then even if it was like after you figured it out, it's like light bulb, and if it was like a light bulb behind you, like or like on the screen that was like above your head. I don't know. Like I just picture that to be very comedic. So I wonder if you start there, get me hooked on like, what does your definition of wellness matter?
Right.
And then you tell me what it is. I think that would be really
I
fun.
think like everyone will be like, what the hell is she talking about? And then like as soon as I say like that last sentence in my script, like they'll be like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
and then
relatable.
exactly. And I really felt that because like I'm totally a by the book kind of person. So I was really like,
And I know a lot of
with you
people
on that.
I know a lot of people who are like, I spend 8+ hours in the library doing this, and I'm like, but why are you doing it? so I can get a good grade, so I can get a good job, and it's like, you're revolving your education around like your future, which it is, like education does make your future, but like you also make your future. Your life is what makes your future.
And is knowing the definition of wellness going to get you a six-figure job? Is a six-figure job going to bring you happiness? What if this happens in your life?
Right.
And I think, and we'll work on it more during the line, but I think it'd be good to talk, like, make your story more cyclical. Like, I really enjoyed the story about your grandma, and like it made sense to me. I was like, oh, this is what this is about. But I think it kind of hit me out of nowhere.
Right.
So I wonder if we can work on that transition.
Where my transition is for that. Oh, I talked
don't mind the
about.
surprise. I think
Yeah.
it's just what it's after.
This is my paragraph about talking about how, because I was so adamant about learning a deaf and we're women, I have a problem with planning my life by the book. Like, because the education stresses, like, you have to know this in order to ace this exam. Basically, it's teaching you that you have to have this in life in order for, like, you have to have A in order to get B or whatever.
Yeah.
I said I freak out at any small convenience that gets in the way of my future's plans. That anxiety shouldn't exist. What is happening in your life right now is supposed to be happening because it's happening. Sounds like a simple concept, but we are so quick to argue with reality because we are perfectionists. And then I go into my quote, like, this is one of my favorite quotes. It's like, if you want reality to be different than what it already is, you might as well teach a cat to bark. So, like, and then that's when I go into my grandma story. So I don't know what I don't know if I should tell the story first and then go into life's plans being.
I think maybe switching that would be good too. And like one thing you just said to me in this is like this quote, like this book didn't mean anything to me when you said it in the speech, but you saying one of my favorite authors once said that, like, in the realm of your speech gives her more credibility to me than of
her book.
Yeah, so I wonder if you say one of my favorite authors so and so once said da da da, and then fit that in somewhere.
Yeah, and if that quote means something to someone, they will go on their own time and be like, what was that?
Yeah,
like what's that from? And then they'll get into like.
Yeah, for sure. It proposes more questions for me. So anyway, if you want to go ahead and we'll start doing it and figuring out if you want to. Do you want to start it that way, or do you want to start it with your story?
I'll start with my story.
Okay.
I like that idea. Just like, and when I'm telling a story, I don't want to be like scripted, you know. Like I want to tell it how it happened. Whether it goes under the time I want it to be or like whatever, I can just.
You'll probably find yourself talking more.
About it.
Yeah, and you can always find more.
It was actually around this time last year. So I can even say that, like around this time last year, we're studying.
Finals were coming up. Yeah. Really walk us through that feeling, because we all have it. It's kind of like you're telling our story too when you tell it. So yeah, really, I think that would be fun if you started with setting the scene, or at least try it.
Yeah, because I mean, like, whether it was a midterm or finals, like, we each studied together and we did the same exact thing. I was like, no, wellness is this.
Yeah.
But I don't really know wellness by definition, so.
That's okay.
I'll say it, but
yeah. If you want to have that part, because I do think it's really funny you saying, and I would definitely make sure to have that part memorized.
Right.
Because the whole like process of you working so hard to memorize that before, I think it's really funny.
Yeah.
You're like, if you prattle that off, I think that's really fun.
Okay. So around this time last year, I was a sophomore in college studying for my final with my boyfriend. We were in the same class. This is hard. I think I'm trying too much to present than tell a story.
And I think and I can see that in like your body language, because I notice one thing that you do a lot when you talk, especially in this one, is you go like this with your arms. And like what that tells me as an audience member is that like you are in a rhythm, and it kind of gets me into this rhythm, and it's really fun when you get out of that rhythm.
Yeah.
So if you're like, this time last year, it was finals time, we were cranking it out, I was working hard, my boyfriend and I, like, really hype up the energy now, and like get us excited for what you're about to say. I think that would be really fun. And make sure like, it's so you don't get yourself into that rhythm, like watch your body posture, that like you have a power stance, which like your legs are like this, you know, really start this story. And then even like, if you find yourself in a certain part of the story that's exciting, like say part of your speech, like start me with your story.
Alright, so around this time last year, we were studying for finals, my boyfriend and I, in the same class, taking the same final. We planned out, I don't even know, like it was so long ago. Okay, alright.
Yeah. Really slow yourself down.
Mhm.
Really, last year, my boyfriend and I, it was finals week, we were stressed out, we didn't know what to do, like every phrase, give us a breath, to like, so you don't have to get through it. It's not
Right.
a speed reading.
Alright. So at this exact same time last year, everyone's favorite week, finals week, my boyfriend and I were studying for this midterm, this final we had together. It was PFW. Who remembers that one? Yeah. So we're studying so hard, cranking it out. I knew it was going to be more definition based, so I was like rehearsing every single definition in my head.
That was good. So you were kind of swaying a little bit.
I
And you
do
would like,
sway all the
and
time.
you were going this, yes, yeah. It was, and you were like kind of like, but I liked the movement. It felt good to me. But I think, like in acting, we talk about moving with purpose. So it was like, so imagine with me, it's finals week. I'm sure you all can relate. And my boyfriend and I were studying, and you can like travel across the room. And then I really enjoyed with your hands, and I was just cranking out those definitions, like, and really, you know, yeah, I like that.
All right.
Okay, start again. Enthusiasm, move with purpose.
Okay. This exact same time last year, everyone's favorite week, finals week, was going on. My boyfriend and I, we were in the same exact class, studying for the same exact final, and we were stressed now. We stayed up all night studying for this final, and I knew it was going to be more definition based, so I began cranking out definition by definition, word for word, because that's what I was taught to do. I was taught to learn a definition word for word in order to understand it. So we get to the quizzing part of our little study session, and
Okay. I really enjoyed the beginning part. I thought it was really fun. I think when you start talking about like,
this is what I was taught.
yeah, I think that's jumping too far ahead for me.
Yeah.
So like maybe trying to rein that in a little bit and make us just go along with you.
With
like,
the
yep,
story.
definition, yep, we learned definitions. Like, just keep talking about that, and then at the end be like, but I wasn't taught to do that, you know, and make us go on the journey with you. Don't give us the punchline before you give us the joke.
Right.
But yeah, the beginning was really good.
Okay.
I'm gonna sit down.
Okay. This is like,
It's good.
it's good, but
It's
it's
good.
like, I know now how that girl felt when we were in that video. She's like,
Yeah.
she literally started, she's like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
okay. So, around this exact same time last year, it's everyone's favorite week, finals week. My boyfriend and I, we were in the same class, studying for the same exact final. We were stressing out, staying up all night, studying. I knew that our test was going to be more definition based, so I spent more time cranking out definition, word for word, like I got this, I'm going to slay it, you know, it's everything's in my head. So he starts quizzing me and he goes, what's the definition of wellness? And I said, wellness is an active process of becoming aware of and making choices towards a healthy and fulfilling life. And he was like, yeah.
Okay. So at this point, you've really gotten my energy and like the attention, and I think you're at like a certain level, and like you're giving me enough time to understand each thing you say, which is really good. I wonder, because the definition of wellness really doesn't matter, I wonder if you try doing it like just like as fast as you can. Like the definition of wellness is
Yeah.
like,
So like,
you know, like
yeah. So let's go back to, he starts quizzing me and he's like, what's the definition of wellness? I'm like,
make sure to keep your pace slow up until that point.
yeah. And I'm like, active process of becoming aware of it, making choices, living a healthy and fulfilling life.
And it'll be behind you, so
Yeah.
it's not that bad for you.
And he's like, but I want to know it like pinpoint.
Yes.
Because like it's so,
know it for sure.
Yeah.
But like, if the audience is like, what the hell is she saying? At least it's behind you.
Yeah.
You don't have to look at it.
And
Because it's like, the definition of wellness is a process by which, like,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's like, yeah, an active process of being aware of and making choices for a healthy and fulfilling life. Like saying it like nonchalant, like I got this shit. And then it was my turn to quiz him, and he got the same exact question. What is wellness? He goes, the state of being in good health. I'm like, hold up, no. The real definition is an active process of being aware of and making choices towards a healthy and fulfilling life. He goes, yeah, Morgan, that's what I just said. I'm like, no, it's not. You didn't say it word for word. He's like, Morgan, I said it in a way that I understand it, because if I look at the definition of wellness and see the word for word one, I know what the word for word one means. Well, like I'm gonna be battling, but like saying like, if I look at that definition, I know what it means, whether it's the same wording or not, because I understand it in my own words. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, bing, light bulb. And I'd be like, this story is an example of my little term I like to call definition processing. Haven't patented the term just yet because I'm waiting for this talk to go viral, so. But have you ever looked at a definition, read a paragraph, and have completely, like, not understood it?
Okay.
It happens to me, yeah.
Oh, no, he was good. I really liked the light bulb. It made me laugh. Make sure your posture is like really strong.
I know, I really have to work on it.
And then light bulb. This is my new term, definition processing. And then instead of explaining to us, have you ever been in this situation? I think maybe giving the audience the opportunity to understand it, kind of like exactly what your whole thing is about. Like, it's about someone knowing their own definition, not it being spelled out for them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I like you involving the audience. So maybe saying, how many of you have had a similar experience when studying for a test?
Mm-hmm.
They raise your hand, and then you move.
Hey, me too.
Me too.
That's why I'm telling you this.
Yeah.
You know? And then I'll just talk about the education system has ingrained in my mind to learn a definition by the book in order to understand it, in order to be successful. Basically, it turns into a slippery slope. Don't know a definition, don't do well on the test, don't get that job, don't have a life. Basically, die alone with your cats. Whatever.
Okay. Yes, I loved that. I think you should definitely. I don't know if you wrote that down.
No.
I loved you walking me through it. It's like, because in my brain, I've always thought, like really slow us down, like I've always thought, if I don't know the definition, I don't get a good grade on the test. If I don't get a good grade on the test, I fail the class. If I fail the class, I don't graduate college. If I don't graduate college, I don't get a degree, I don't get a job, I die homeless and alone, and my cat eats my dead body.
And I'll be like, I'll be like, do you guys understand? And then like, everyone will be like, what the fuck? And I'll be like, this does not matter. It should not matter. Like saying like
yeah. So I think
that might be my moment.
I think that would be really fun. So I think, like you talked about at the beginning, like clarifying. I think if you, I think you need to clarify, what do you think the issue is? Is it the education system that's doing this, or is it society that's doing this, or is it America's something? You
that's
know,
like words like getting. That's where I'm like, does this make sense? Because I talk about the education system, and I talk about like my little theory that the education system is the reason why we why we stress over the things we can't control.
Yeah.
Which I think that makes sense to me, because like we think we have so much control over our education, and we do, but like we don't have control of how, like say a family member dies and like you missed that exam you studied really hard for, and like you had to make it up, start all over. Like that wasn't in your plan, that wasn't by the book, but like it just like relates, I guess. I don't know.
No, for sure. So I think I think just knowing that, like, at the end of the day, in your speech, you see, like, what is your phrase? Like, what is your, like, if you could take every idea in your speech and condense it down to one sentence, what would you say it would be?
It would have to be life doesn't have to be by the book.
Life doesn't, okay. I think that's good. And I think that's a really cool metaphor because you're talking about school and, like, you know, book. So I think you need to know, like, at the end of the day, what all of it boils down to is the educational system has made life into a rule book. You know? Because you're not even saying, like, life doesn't have to be by the book. You're saying this is why we think life has to be by the book for no real reason. So, like, yeah, so I think that's where the clarity issue may come in, that maybe we don't know, not who you're blaming, it's not like you're creating the scapegoat, but, like, why do you feel this way about processing? And so after you give your definition processing, which is ironic, then you go into all about education and the educational system, which is good. And then kind of tying those two things together, I really liked the list that you kind of did off the top of your head. Like, this one definition to me ends up relating to my whole life. And while I might be able to choose how I study for this definition, I could never control what happens over here.
Life is inevitable.
Life is inevitable. And so I think finding your journey through there, like through this definition to life is inevitable, I think you've got the beginning and the end with your story about definition and your story about your grandma. But I think it's finding the navigation through that story.
Do you mind if we like take a second to like outline my speech?
Sure.
So,
That's
like,
what you want to do, totally.
So like start with the story.
Yeah.
Studying for exam. And then go into definition processing. Basically talk about why the education system, why it's important to learn things by the book, why we were taught it's important to handle things by the book. Like, go into that huge, if I don't know the definition and I don't do well on the exam.
Yeah.
So like, that might be my little moment, because I'm gonna start talking really fast, like amp up the stress,
Yeah.
and then slowly just collapse and just be like, it doesn't have to be like this. Like,
Yeah, really, yeah, I think if you ramp up through those stages, and then at the end you go, and that's just like, act like you're tired, you know what I mean? Like, and that's just too much for anyone to deal with, you know? I think that's good.
and then, what do I say? I totally forgot my original one, because like, this one is so much more amped up and I really like it. Throughout our years in education, we've learned at a very young age that grades are important, blah, blah, blah. I want to keep this in. I feel as though life revolves around more around education than education revolves around our lives.
Yeah.
And I could say that after this.
For sure. And I think you need, if we could add a place in it where you really, because I know you do it at the end, and I love that. I love the end line. I think that should totally stay. But how can you tell me why this is, what your speech really is about, and why does it matter earlier on? If you can like really solidify that at some point, I think that would be great.
I say, don't get me wrong, education is extremely important, but is it what makes us who we are? Absolutely not. It's when we take these ideas from the education system and use them in our personal lives that education starts to take control. And I say, Because I was so adamant about learning a definition word for word on an exam, I have a problem with planning my life by the book. And then I say like how I freak out at any small convenience that gets in the way of my plans, or anxiety shouldn't exist, and that's when I talk about, that's when I say I said that anxiety shouldn't exist. And then I think I should go into my story about my grandma after that.
After what?
Saying like, I freak out that at any small inconvenience that gets in the way of my future's plans, that anxiety shouldn't exist. And then, moment of silence. My dad gets a phone call one day.
I wonder, like, I love what is it called? Like, when things, it feels like it doesn't match up, and then you, like, shift the puzzle, it makes sense to us. I wonder if, where is it? Like, I don't know, I wonder if, like, I like this idea of right before you tell a story about your dad getting a call one day, if you like really solidify to us that whatever you're about to tell us is about your, about how your life is uncontrollable. Like, if the educational system, educational system tries to teach us so much, if it has taught me anything, it's that life needs to be planned minute by minute. But since then, I found that's impossible. And that, like, if you tell us, like, give us allude just enough to before your story with your dad, I think that would really, like, make it feel like it's not coming out of nowhere. And then I was wondering if the quote that you like, if you want reality to be different than what it already is, you might as well teach a cat to bark. I wonder if that would be good at the end. If you, right before your, kind of your moment at the end, you say, one of my favorite authors once said, and let the audience figure out how that relates. You know what I mean? Give them the opportunity, like give them the room, and then say, life doesn't have to be by the book anymore. Starting today. Thank you. Like,
Let me put that.
Because I do like that quote, and I like, more importantly, I like that quote means something to you.
So, before starting the story about my dad getting a phone call, I'll say the education system has taught me that in order to be successful in life, you have to plan it minute by minute. But since then, since life has gone on, I found this to be impossible.
Yeah. I think that's good. I'm trying to think of like, because Ashley talked to us about like word choice and how important that is, and I wonder if we can like, how we could make that super eloquent towards like, ooh, that was like, you know what I mean? Like I wonder, like I like the idea, I like the play on words, like the irony of education has taught me. Like I find that so ridiculous because education's whole point is to teach, and so that it's taught you nothing more than this. So I wonder if you said something, well, education has pretended to teach me so many things, what it's really taught me is that my life should be planned minute by minute. But the more they teach, the more I realize how impossible that is. Or something like that. And like, I think that's really impactful. But I think that's a really good idea that you,
and then
really relatable.
Go into basically talking about what's happening in your life is supposed to be.
And make sure at the end of the story with your grandma, I think really solidifying that it's not a story about your dad, it's not a story about your grandma, it's a story about you. And it's a story about how, like, I couldn't control that in my life. I can't control that in my life.
Yeah.
I can't control much in my life. And
Yeah, because I say my grandma has Alzheimer's disease. That incident was our first step in accepting that she cannot live on her own anymore because her disease is progressing. Did I expect this to be in my plans? Do any of us expect life's inevitable to be in our plans?
yeah, I really like that part. And I think if you really make that a moment, like I would almost like if we could do the line by line, starting right before your story and then working through your story. Because I think your story about your grandma could be like a really cool point in your speech.
I just hope I don't cry.
Oh, okay. If you say it enough beforehand, then you can get through most of the story. But if you end up crying at the end, then that's totally okay. That's life. That shows that you care.
It's literally life because did I plan to cry? No.
No. And you can, if it does happen, you're like, see, did I plan to cry? No, I didn't. But here we are. Like that could be funny too. So okay, make anything work. So yeah.
Okay. So all my life, the education system has pretended to teach me how to be successful in life. What the education system has really taught me is
really give you, so your words hold meaning, but I want you to give it meaning. Okay. So like really walk me through every single word. The education system pretends to teach me so much, but what it really has taught me, it might, it's better to do it ridiculous now and then be like, ooh, that was a lot more.
Right.
So okay, start again, give your words.
Okay. Start from the toes to the nose. Okay. So, all my life, the education system pretends to teach me. Oh shit.
It's okay. Hold on.
Okay.
You know what you gotta say.
The education system, to this day, has pretended to teach me about all of these things. But what it really has taught me is if you don't plan out your life minute by minute, you won't be successful. The more life has gone on, I realized that this planning by minute thing is impossible. One day, my dad receives a phone call. Ricky, I'm lost.
Okay, that was so good. I really like that transition. It made so much more sense to me. Now I want you to say it again, but I want you to really know what you're about to say.
Okay.
BS it if you have to, and then when you get on that phone, I want you to pause where you're at. My dad got a phone call one day. Ricky, I'm lost. Really plant yourself.
Don't walk around.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. To this day, the education system pretends to teach me a lot of things. But what I've really learned is that it's taught me that if you don't plan out your life minute by minute, you won't be successful. The more life has gone on, and the more life's inconveniences have gotten in the way, I realize that planning your life minute by minute is impossible. One day, my dad receives a phone call. Ricky, I'm lost. My grandmother was on her way to our house on a Saturday evening for some dinner. She lives about 10 minutes away from us, so we figured maybe she was, got turned around or something. It turns out she ended up being an hour away from our home because she was stuck at a train, turned around, and kept driving. My grandmother has Alzheimer's disease. And this incident was our first realization that she should not live on her own anymore. It's been really tough for us to grasp that she has this disease. A woman who has taught us everything, who cherishes life, who loves her Lord. And I just kind of just sat there and kind of just wondered why. I didn't expect this to be in my life's plans. Do we expect life's inevitable to be in our plans?
It's good. That was good. I was really right there with you, like 100%. And I think you getting out of a script really helped. Like,
Yeah.
and I know it feels more like you feel it.
Yeah.
So I think maybe going over. I have no idea how this has been.
Can you check?
Oh. 45 minutes. Great. Love that for us. Okay. Yeah, I think know your story enough to where your emotions maybe don't get in the way.
Yeah.
But definitely.
It is like something hard to talk about, so I kind of just like, I literally just kind of shrug it under the rug. Don't really talk, like it's something we don't talk about in
Yeah.
our family. Like it's something we don't discuss. I call my parents all the time asking how my grandma is now. Like she's gonna start living with us, and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, she's fine. But is she though? Like, we don't talk about it. So like, I think I get kind of lost in the story when I try and reword it so that it seems like
Yeah.
it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal to me. But like, I have to show that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say just to make sure that you don't get yourself into like an emotional hole, because I know that's really easy, especially like when talking about loved ones or when talking about like hard things.
Right.
So I like when you're figuring out what to say or what not to say about your grandma, think about like, okay, well, what's the point of what I'm trying to say in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Does what I'm saying help my audience understand?
Mm-hmm.
And if not, then maybe that's a piece of your story that you don't have to put yourself through the emotional turmoil of understanding. But yeah, I really enjoy that story, and I think that transition into it is really good. And I think your integration of, what's the word? Of your own personal story and like being lighthearted and being serious really shows like your life is much bigger than that. And maybe even you can like, I think afterwards, like, cause you got a couple minutes that you need to fill, maybe like you might feel that you're leading your audience too much, but I think if you really sit down and take the time to compare the difference between talking to your boyfriend about a definition and your grandmother getting lost under the way to your house, about life can be as silly and as simple as this, or as big as that. And while we can control little things, is that really gonna rewrite our story? And maybe talk about that, like, that if we don't have to live by the book, then maybe it doesn't help us write our story. And I think there's a lot of like description and understanding you can give on that. So I think kind of going after all of that, I think from now until speech, what do you feel like you want to work on the most?
I want to work on being comfortable, because I am just like ADD, looking here, looking there.
Yeah.
Literally, Ashley has told me, like, I want you to look at me. Like, I don't want you to, like, tell me something serious and you're like, well, yeah, my grandma has Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
She wants me to be like, my grandma has Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah.
It fucking sucks. Like, you know, like,
For sure.
she says in all of mine, she's like, you're looking around, like, at the corners of the room. Like,
Yeah.
you need to look straight on. Don't be afraid, like, to say anything. She's like, these people have heard you speak more than you'll probably ever speak to anyone in your life. Because, like, it's true. We stand in front of each other and we just give our presentations and that's it. Like, you know?
Yeah.
She's like, and everyone's, like, rooting for you, too. She was like, don't be afraid because everyone, like, loves you, and root for you, like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think something that I do, because since I do a lot of theater, I think eye contact is really important.
Mm-hmm.
So something that I do when I give speeches is that, like, looking at people individually, like, I always have a goal for myself at the end of my speech. I should have looked every single audience member in the eye for at least a second, you know? And then, I mean, sometimes it's awkward to, like, say things to people and you're like, all right, we're gonna focus on you today, Jacob. Like, yeah, try to look at everybody, and I think if you look at them, they're gonna feel more inclined to look at you, which means they're hearing what you have to say. So I think, yeah, I think getting your speech down in a way, I think things that you could do is, like, getting your speech down in a way where you know what you're gonna say, so you don't feel like you're getting lost, but not so much to where you feel like you're reading a story. Kind of like what your whole speech is about. Like, you can't plan every single word you're gonna say, but at least have your rough, your outline. And then I think really clarifying what are you wanting to say, and make sure you have moments that you define, like, this is what I'm saying, and this is why it matters. And if you have a couple moments in it, I think that would be really good.
I'm excited to see everyone's, like,
I know.
feel like everyone's is gonna be, like, different, like, very different. I'm with Jack, like, later today, so I'm like, I'm excited. He was the same thing as me. He was like, I know I said I was ready by Friday, but I'm just not ready.
I did the same thing. On
Really?
Friday I was gonna give it, and I was like, yeah, I couldn't. But yeah.
And, like, literally Addison goes Wednesday, and Renee, and I'm like, they're so brave. When do you go?
I go Monday.
I go the last day.
Yeah. It'll be good. It's fun. I feel like, and people care. People care what you have to say, and people
Really?
care about what they have to say. So
Because it's not like stupid Con 210 subjects where it's like,
this is my hometown.
let's do a how-to, or let's do,
Yeah.
and then I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I just really have to be here in order to not lose points, because, like, literally I lost 20 points because I missed a day of, like, presentations. I think it was 10 points. Anyways, so,
But yeah, I think really working on, like, so you don't kind of get lost. I would, like, find maybe, I don't know, 5 parts of your speech where you know it word for word, and, like, the words are really good. And so it maybe, like, those
usually, yeah, with my quotes and my story about my grandma, I think that was really word for word.
Yeah. And I thought that was really good. And so, like, yeah, I think if you can clarify and make sure that you're like, okay, now I'm talking about education, and now I'm talking about how education relates to the future, and how, and that way it doesn't feel divided and, like, not correlated. Because I think everything you're saying fits.
Yeah, and then just wrap it all up at the end.
Yeah.
Put a bow on it.
Yeah, and I would take a couple, like, if you, with the extra couple minutes you have, really compare your first story to your second story, and why the hell you spent time talking about both. Because I think both are really important.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, see what I mean?
Yeah, I
Anything else?
totally know why, like, she put you as my coach, though. Like, you really helped me a lot, and I really enjoyed, like, all of your speeches. Like,
Thank
all
you.
of them.
I was gonna say, I'm kind of shocked she didn't, I guess she probably doesn't know my topic, but I'm kind of shocked she didn't flip it, since my topic is about body image and stuff like that. But
Right, I'm
yeah.
excited to hear that one. Even though I'm not your coach, I'm still rooting for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. I think it's gonna be really good. Yeah, I think if you bring the same, I think one of your biggest, like, assets is your sincerity, and so I think if you bring that, then you're gonna be totally fine.
Yeah. Sometimes I get too in the moment. I'm like making everyone cry.
Yeah.
And then I have you crying, like, about to present. You're like, really?
No, I cry at the Campbell Soup commercial, so, like,
I cry at everything. Too.
everything. Yeah. No. Did you see The Stars Born?
No.
Oh my gosh, I bawled like a baby. Like, it was embarrassing.
I literally cried at the new Bohemian Rhapsody movie. And I already know, like,